Hey, everybody, I'd like to welcome all of you to another episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG. Today, we got two special guests, Marissa and Amy. The first episode, we interviewed Amy in the previous one, and Marissa helped co host. And now, on this episode, we will be interviewing Marissa, and Amy's going to help us co host. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome you guys onto the show again. And Marissa, I would like to give you the floor to allow you to introduce yourself.
I am Marissa, and I am from the Cheyenne, Wyoming branch, which is a branch of Denver, Colorado. And I first joined the WMSCOG October 2014, and I just left December of 2024. So a little over 10 years.
Cool.
So when you joined in 2014, what did you like what got you involved in the call?
Yeah. So, I was in a kind of a weird time spiritually. I didn't like have any kind of church home. Um, I was just kind of like spiritual at the time. I was raised Catholic, visited different churches, but wasn't even like I wouldn't even consider myself Christian. And at that time, I was going through a lot, um, with certain things like substance abuse and like I would also say like my dad has passed, but at the time he was really sick with a lung disease, for like a lot of my life. So I was also like really like afraid of death. So, and I was like 19, 20. So I was
Mhm.
just really like kind of in the zone of like being afraid of death, not knowing what I believed in, wanting to be spiritual, but not really well versed in the Bible. So I remember going through a hard time and writing in a journal to God because I didn't know how to pray. I was writing to God, like, please help me with my situation. I don't know what to do. Like, please help me. And that was early October 2014. And then, of course, October 14th, 2014, um, or just during that time, I was approached at Walmart, by my branch, and she just invited me to a Bible study. And I was really, really open-minded too, kind of like for everything, like, yeah, sure, why not, you know? And so we exchanged contact information, and she ended up meeting me at the community college I was going to at that time. And the very first subject I studied was Elohim, if you guys
Oh,
know that
that's
subject.
different. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Like nothing like Sabbath. They are very like uh kind of like
Not
surface
forgiveness of
level.
sins or anything. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. I remember it was Elohim. And maybe she could feel that I was really like open and really like,
Mhm.
because when we studied that we have a mother, I was like, yeah, I was one of those. And so like she had asked me during after that study like if I want to be baptized because I'm sure she morphed it, right, like Elohim God, and then like if you want to like be saved and accept them, what do you need to do? So I
Right.
ended up saying like yeah, and she was like, right, like let's go, and it was that
Mhm.
time where it was like get that baptism, you know and
Uh,
she's like, well, let's go. And I was like, oh, like right now? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So like I drove to the church, which at the time was a house, and yeah, I was baptized that day, and I dragged one of my classmates with me who I just got out of like one of our like prerequisite college classes with, and I was like, "Do you want to do Bible study?" She was like, "Sure." And then we did the study together, and then we went to the house church together and got baptized.
Mhm.
So
dang.
I was one of those who was baptized after my very first study. I was not stubborn. I mean, I really like granted, right before this like encounter, I was like messing with tarot cards and like, I was very
Mhm.
like open to like,
Mhm.
I wasn't like, is this like biblically like, what about Jesus? And like, that just wasn't like my situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did your friend stay? Is that same friend that was baptized? Did they stay? No. Mm-hmm.
No. And like we weren't like friends prior. We were like acquaintances and like classmates and like becoming friends.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she didn't stay in the church
Yeah,
for
that's
more than
good.
a couple months, right? Like hindsight, it's
Yeah.
good.
Hey,
But I was
hey,
like, oh, she's one of the ones.
Yeah.
shout out to her because she dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
I know back then I
Yeah.
was like, she's just the weed, or like how
Yeah.
Yeah.
that pity, but like actually
Right.
the way
Yeah.
around.
Hey,
Yeah.
real quick, I find it interesting. I never heard that before. Like you said, you were kind of dabbling in some tarot cards, and that's kind of like has to do with the occult. And I kind of want to know a little bit more about that because that kind of spiked my interest. Like, what was that about? Like, can you explain to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So like I was saying, like I wasn't like a firm Christian or anything. Like I was born into Catholicism. I did visited so many different churches with friends, whatever they were, like Baptist or Mormon, but I never like got into it. And then by the time I was like teenager and late teens, going on to like adulthood, 18, 19, 20, I was like more like a hippie, like spiritual, like I was connecting like the universe with like us and like the
Hmm.
creation is so awesome. And like I feel like I was like, I know we're more than this, but like I don't know. And me and my best friend, who's still my best friend, uh, we had a boss at the time we worked together. She did like tarot readings. So like I can't remember much about it because it's been so long and I haven't done it since, but like basically I don't remember if like we draw the card or they draw the card for us, but like whatever the card says, they relate it to like maybe like a past life or like something that will happen in your future. And it's so funny because some things like made so much sense that you were like, oh, that did happen. Or like something that Amber was read actually did happen. And it was something like
Hmm.
someone will come into your life, your love will be like blonde and blue-eyed. And of course that happened. But like we're like, oh my gosh, the readings are right. So like we were just that was like the type of stuff we were doing right before I was writing in that journal to ask God for help, and then like that like invitation
Hmm.
happened. So
That's pretty
Right.
crazy. That's wild.
You you probably felt like it was maybe like a sign, at the time,
I
like,
did.
oh, I was dabbling with something, and they're trying to pull me out of it. When
Yeah.
you when you first joined, um, you didn't like tell them that you were doing any of that. You just kind of just joined.
Uh, I don't remember telling them any of that.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I
No, I
could
don't
imagine.
remember.
Yeah. I was just wondering if they said anything about it.
They probably would have. They probably would have just told you to like instead of give your 10%, like you should have gave 20% because of that or something.
Right, like you need to get in sackcloth and
Yeah,
ash.
let some
Yeah.
ashes on your
Yeah.
head or something.
Yeah. No,
That's
I was
wild.
Yeah, I was no, like they were pretty like they were pretty patient with me because like like right after I was baptized I was like yeah I'm going to a Korn and Slipknot concert kind of nervous and my branch was like oh she's like Korean like oh like have fun but like I was brand new like 3 days just baptized
Hmm.
and studied
Yeah,
so
Hmm.
but I think
Yeah.
they could also tell that I was very like I was one of those that was like I want to study 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 and even I had a boyfriend who is now my kids' dad, ex-husband. At the time, like I wanted to study so much, and like he was studying, and I'm like, "Are you studying more?" Like I want to like I was so
Hmm.
like I wanted it so much, so like I was
Hmm.
just what they wanted.
How did they treat you when you first came? Were they like super love bombing you? Yeah. How long did it take, like, for you? Like, how long did like the love bombing or those things at the beginning happen?
You know, it's hard for me to like measure that because when I first came, they definitely like made me feel like a star, like love bombed. They're like they loved that I loved it so much, right? So like they
Mhm.
had a vision for me to be this great gospel worker. Me
Mhm.
believing what I was studying also wanted to be that great gospel worker. It was like they had that vision for me, of course. And then like I knew what they wanted from me in that vision, and I wanted it just as much, believing in what I thought was the truth, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I had a boyfriend at the time, and he actually ended up being baptized like almost exactly a month after me. And then at that same time, almost a month after I was baptized, I got pregnant.
Mhm.
And when I got pregnant with my son, I I could tell that they were like really bummed out.
Mhm.
I had two Korean leaders. Um, I'm not saying anything bad. I still love her, but like sometimes they are a little like blunt too, or like they say
Mhm.
things they maybe shouldn't. Like, well, and especially like in this dynamic, it being a cult. Like I remember her saying, like we wanted to tell you like not to get pregnant. So like after I was already pregnant, they were like, oh, like kind of like darn, like this is like we were gonna tell you not to get pregnant, and I'm like, oh, like don't. And then I like it made my experience like, and then me and my like
Mhm.
ex also had issues, so I was like, like, but it was something that I should have been excited about, that I
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
was having a
Mhm.
child, but like I just was going through like, like, is it like a bad thing? Like, like, and then like it was the year of Jubilee. And so, like, we're going to heaven and the world's ending. So it's just not like the best time, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, like, they like were bummed out because they had this like great vision of me to be a gospel worker. And before I like realized I was pregnant, I had that same vision. So I remember being like, now that like I am pregnant, like I have to give it my all as if I wasn't. And even though I
Mhm.
am a mom, I'm gonna give it my all as if I wasn't, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
will be the gospel worker I need to be, even though I'm pregnant and even though I'm a mom.
Mhm.
That's so
Yeah.
wild though. Like the way they make you feel like that's not right, like
Mhm.
they take a moment where you should they should be happy for you, you know what I mean? Like literally the Bible tells you be fruitful and increase in numbers, and it, children were always a blessing to Jesus, and then here's these people like the way you said it too, like just the expression on your face and everything, like I could just imagine like they suck the fun out of everything, like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
pregnant. It's like, darn it. Why did you know what I mean? Like, who does
Mhm.
that? That's
Mhm.
so wild. But again, you came in at around Jubilee, and we all know what happened during the year of Jubilee. So that's pretty
Mhm.
crazy. But
Right.
how was the beginning part of when after obviously after you got baptized and you said you were striving to be that gospel worker even with kids, so how was that experience at first, being in the church?
Uh, it was crazy. I thought we were really going to heaven. I believed it 110%. So it didn't matter if I mean, I didn't know if I would meet my baby, if my baby would be one. It was like, it's so crazy to think about now because believing in that 100%, I was so happy. I'm like, well, me and my son can just go to heaven, you know? And I was happy and willing to do everything because of what I believed,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
and looking back at that year, it was so much hours of education, preaching, like it was my whole life. I
Mhm.
no longer had time for friends. I no longer had time for family. And I believed that that was the right thing to do. I tried to preach to them all. I tried to preach to my friends. But we were going to heaven. So, like, at the end of the day, that's all that mattered. So, like, you know, I kind of started at that point. Inevitably, you leave your family behind, your aunts, your whoever, you know. I think there's a lot that happened because
Mhm.
when I got pregnant, like I told you guys, my dad was really sick. And he passed away right before I found out the sex of the baby. And so I was like really heartbroken. And because I I have a relationship with my mom, but it's very not uh what would you call it? Like a regular mother-daughter relationship. We like did, substance abuse together and stuff like that. Like so like my dad was more of like my parent and losing him was really hard for me in the midst of being pregnant and all these things and I was trying to go to Laramie County School, right? I was trying to go to school at that time, which was where I was preached to. So much just happened. Like I didn't get to fully grieve my dad because I remember them visiting me and it was one of those things where it was like, let the dead bury the dead. You need to get to Zion, you know? And I feel like I was like, okay, like maybe it was God's will so I could fully focus on the gospel. And then I, also stopped going to school because it was too much with like working full time, being almost ready to be a mom, my dad passing away, so I also quit school. And I like all those things I wanted to do. I did those things because I wanted to because I thought it was for God.
Mhm.
And not only that, but like, I got like an inheritance, like some sort of an inheritance from my dad. And then Jubilee happened and we were going to heaven, so I quit my job. And I moved out of my apartment at the advice of the church leader, and we moved into this shared home with multiple members as I'm like about to have a newborn. And like, so I spent my dad's inheritance on like, covering the mortgage of that home. So things were just like so, like looking back, like logically and like from an outside perspective, you're like, no wonder people from the outside were like, what are you guys doing? You
Right.
know?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
those are like some of the things that I was doing, at age 20, 21, like first in the church. And
Right.
Yeah.
like that was my whole life. I, was preaching very pregnant, going to educations very pregnant, and then I had my son and it didn't stop from there.
That's
Mhm.
wild. That's wild. Just the fact that, everything that you were going through all at once, and then you're in this place and doesn't make any of that stuff better, and then you were saying, I wanted to do that stuff, but again, we want to do that stuff because what we're hearing, right, what
Mhm.
they're
Right.
what they're instilling in us, that there is nothing after this. And what's the point of having anything in this world if we're getting ready to go to heaven? That's going to be left behind. And so, you
It's all going to be
know
burned in World War III.
right.
Mhm.
And
Right.
did you even
Mhm.
really get to mourn your dad?
Um, I feel like yes and no. Like one thing I am thankful for is I did it sober. I was pregnant. So that's one thing I can always be grateful for. But uh it was so fast. It was like I got
Mhm.
to really feel and grieve for like quickly because you don't have time. Like let the dead bury the dead and move on, and like, oh, must have been God's will so I could focus on the gospel and not have to do his Walmart shopping and take care of him. Like you're just so indoctrinated. Everything that happens in the outside world or in your world, whatever is all
Mhm.
according to like this doctrination, this
Mhm.
doctrine. And so
Mhm.
like after I've left, I can't tell whether I did fully grieve or not because it just was like move on.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I don't know, like you pointed out, Edgar, it's like giving up as much as we gave up, if it really was for God and like the perfect truth, worth it. And we that's
Right.
what we thought. So we thought everything was worth it.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
coming to find out that it's not, that's what's like disheartening.
Right.
Mhm.
What you got,
But like
Amy?
um, I was just thinking because you just mentioned Edgar too about like the doctrine, how um that's really what pushes us to kind of like behave that way. But same with like the families, like, you know, um, it's not just the doctrine when you think of like why there's separation of families. I feel like that's more of something that is um taught, no one is told when they first come in like you have to be baptized and keep all these feasts, Sabbath day, and oh, don't forget if you got to preach every day and you got to bear fruit. And I don't, I feel like you're willing to separate from your family, because not only of the doctrine, but what the doctrine creates in that environment for people to expect from one another. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it definitely is like toxic no matter what, no matter what the income. And so, um, I'm really sorry that you couldn't grieve like fully, I understand death in the church too, and not a parent. So, but there's something, it's really difficult. It's
Yeah.
difficult to fully, you're so busy. Like you said, you're so busy. So you kind of just like push it to the side because they're telling you, oh, that's trying to distract you from the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
Like this situation happened because God wants to or Satan wants to pull you away from the kingdom of heaven, or God wants to show you what your idols are. Like they use these situations against you so you can do nothing but think of everything that happens spiritually.
Right.
Because most of the time these problems are caused by the church, right? Like not like directly, but you know, like
Right.
you
Domino
bring
effect.
kids late to school, or you lose your job, or it's created because of the expectation, um, maybe not from a common member, but once you decide to be a unit leader and you're going into those meetings, there's an expectation, down to the point of that even sometimes I was asked to give a schedule, like those kinds of things, so
Exactly.
that environment is not a good environment for those situations to happen, so
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. I think it's tough when you end up having to choose. Like really is a us versus them mentality in there. Like how dare you have a life outside of Zion? Like you have one foot in,
right.
one foot out, and you're so lukewarm. So like you almost feel like you can't live a normal life. Whereas that's so weird, where
Hmm.
like you almost
Yeah,
have to choose, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
And
I
it's I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's evil. I mean, I'm just gonna say it how it is. Like it's evil what they do, because this isn't the first time that I've heard people lose people and children, and just there's so many things that are at stake in our lives, and we lose our lives in this place. And to hear them say like nonchalant, like let the dead bury their dead, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, oh, that term rubs me the wrong way now, like so much, because the way they threw it out there to so many members, and I just wanted to share also a little bit. I know my dad, I know he watches some of my videos. So if he's watching, shout out to my pops. But in like 2015, during the year of Jubilee, to my shame, I was so lost in the sauce. And my dad had a health emergency, and the reason I remember is because you were speaking about your father, kind of with lung issues. And my
yeah,
dad actually had like a collapsed lung, and like he was in pain. He went to the hospital, and they had to do surgery on him, and they didn't even have time to like give him anything. Like the way my mom described it, it was very brutal, and I almost lost him. And I remember that they called me, and I didn't answer my phone, because during that time I was preaching with brothers, brothers that were assigned to me. And, I've never mentioned that before, but, that's one of those things that there's so many times that I can remember, but we neglected so much, family members, loved ones, ourselves, our
Yeah.
like our well-being in that place, and so,
And I
you know,
really
it's
felt like you mentioning that, like anyone could say to like Edgar, like, oh, you could have answered your phone. But they create an environment and they, with
Mhm.
how much we're like, what we're being fed in educations and being taught, and like, if it would have just been like you, Edgar, outside of that, of course you would have answered your phone. Why is it that you didn't?
right.
Mhm.
Because we're taught like those things like, oh, what that's more important to you? What's more important? You saving a
Mhm.
soul, or like we're really like,
Yeah, father and mother fit like in heaven are above your physical. So you can't even like really even keep God's the commands they want you to that they use against you. Like this is how you treat your father and mother in heaven. Um, but we can't give that respect to our parents while we're
Yeah.
here. Like because we have this obligation. You can't pick it up during dinner time and you're sitting with members as a leader,
yeah,
or studying with somebody or preaching. Like, I mean, you might have this little window every day, and is your family available during that little window? If you have that little window, because hopefully
Yeah.
sometimes you might get that you want to take a nap for 20 minutes if you can get that. So yeah.
yeah.
And
What
I want to.
oh, go ahead. No, no, first, Marissa.
Well, I just wanted to mention too, like the way they make everybody seem like such an idol is so wrong. Like for example, when I started like after I had my son, it was the height of like preaching everywhere. In Wyoming, we had so many towns that it's just Wyoming's a huge state with, like it's conquered
Mhm.
is what we called it. And, I was traveling to like Casper and other places right after I had my son, when really I should be getting all that time with him as like
Mhm.
a new mother, bonding. And I did, but not like I should have. Because in my
Mhm.
mind, the world is about to be destroyed by World War III. And for his and my sake, this is what's important for everyone involved. So I
Mhm.
was out in other towns, left him with his dad preaching. And I remember one time I was looking at pictures of my son during preaching because he's my new baby. I miss him. And I was looking at pictures of him in between houses and stuff. And the church leader caught wind of it. And when all the preaching members ended up gathering together for like, you gather together after preaching and like before, he ended up like
Mhm.
saying like pretty much to the whole like preaching group, like rebuking me. Like not me directly, but like, oh, you want to like look at pictures and like be distracted, like made me feel so bad for like looking at pictures of my son. Cause like, why should I be
Mhm.
doing that when like I should be thinking of the souls I'm about to save?
Mhm.
And there was another time I wanted to sleep in between service with my newborn because I'm tired and I just want to
Mhm.
not even skip Sabbath day, just in between. And he came and knocked on the house door and was like, "What are you doing? Like, get back to Zion."
Mhm.
And the,
wow.
the
Mhm.
reason is because like I was like a pillar, right? I'm a new mom, but I was
Mhm.
like a pillar and an example. And my example was I'm leaving in between services and resting with my newborn, which is normal. But to him, he's like, "What are you doing? Like, it really, this is what you're doing now?" And I was like I felt so like guilty, like I'm sorry. And like we packed up and went back.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, they really they want to take every moment of your free time. Any piece, if even if you have 10 minutes and you don't use it for something that's like spiritual, or to help yourself so that you could be better spiritually, right? Then it's like, no, you can't even do that, you know? Um, You had mentioned about the leader coming to visit you. So you at this time you were a leader, as like you a unit group leader position?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't remember
okay.
I'm pretty sure I was like a
hmm
unit or a group leader.
hmm
I had
You
like,
lived in
yeah,
the shared? At this time you're living in the shared one you were talking about? Or
at this
no?
time, I don't think yet. So I actually, well, specifically, I had my sister-in-law at the time. And they had a apartment right by Zion. So we ended up going to her house in between services so I could rest with him. So he knocked on
Mm,
her door and she was a member too, very new member. So
mm,
That's
really like
crazy.
I'm still even new. I was just baptized in October 2014. My son was born August 2015 and then during that newborn time.
yeah,
But
it
I
kind
was
of
already very much like very involved. Like I taught sermon book. Like I
Yep.
brought in many members. Like so I was like a
hmm
pillar to them. So they're like, "What are you doing? Like it doesn't matter that you have a newborn. Like get back to Zion. How dare you go in between services and try and rest, you sinner?" And I'm
Right.
like, "You're right. I better get back there and just
hmm
die for the gospel because that's what I'm supposed to do."
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's
Facts.
important to note because things like that happening are what that's that real fear, like those moments. I can say, like, you think back to those moments when leaders, show up randomly at your house, and you were doing something, cleaning, or, you got a doctor's appointment, or, they showed up, the leaders at one time. I was outside talking to my sister and like showed up, and it was so awkward. My sister's like, they just like show up at your house, So,
Yeah.
but but you think back to it, and I really feel like, especially if they felt enough to know, like, oh, she knows enough. Like they knew like they could cross it enough. But it gives you a feeling after, to really keep you like you're not gonna go home between services again,
No,
right?
I won't do that again.
Right.
That's
Like those
crazy.
things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're not
So
gonna
it's
do it again.
it's a tactic that they use. That's a good point, Amy. Yeah, because that would make someone think twice about doing that again, so that they don't show up like that unexpectedly. I hadn't thought about
Mhm.
that. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
That's
those little
exactly it.
moments, it's like it's really, and I feel like it happens secretly. Like you said, they went to your house, so I feel like every member, they get rebuked like little bit about different things. So it's just like constantly they're probably thinking like, don't do that again, or it's
Yeah.
it's it's strange.
And
It's
it
very
works.
strange.
You're
And
right.
yes,
I'm
it
like, I don't
works.
want to do that again. I'm
Yeah.
a lazy worm. I was trying to nap with.
You're a sinner.
Yeah.
On the city of refuge. Oh my
Ex
god, like
it,
can't even take a nap. Like they're so ridiculous. They like
hmm
it's so ridiculous. And when you guys were talking, I was thinking about something that was said earlier about kind of like how we neglected our families, and then kind of thinking about how we were talking about like the doctrine aspect of it and how they use the doctrine to make us think, right? And so I thought of a sermon that is one of the most basic ones. But I also, now looking back at it, I understand that it might not be profound to the members when they're studying it, like, because prophecy wise, but what does it do to your mental? And I'm talking about heavenly family, earthly family, because
hmm
it seems so simple. But what they're planting in your mind is that your real family is not really your family. The most important family you have is your heavenly family. And when I mean heavenly family, for anyone that's not in the WMSCOG that might be watching this, only that when they say heavenly family, they only mean World Mission Society Church of God members.
hmm
So An San Hong, Zangyo, and then under them, all the brothers and sisters. Those are your real family. And anyone who does not believe in father and mother, they're not your family. I remember even one time hearing missionary Michael say to me well, he didn't just say to me, he said this to the church. This was around like 2017, I believe. He said, a lot of members, they spend time with, their families or loved ones or friends, and they keep them from doing the gospel work. He says, but on the last day, when Father comes to judge the world, when we're standing in line to enter the kingdom of heaven, he said, when we're being judged and it's going to be decided whether we're going to heaven or hell, many people are going to be shocked when the person standing next to you that you thought was, your loved one, or the person closest to you, but that got you to neglect the gospel work, when they take their flesh off and you see their true form as an evil spirit, as a demon, then you're going to realize, but it'll already be too late. And I remember that struck fear into so many members, to make them think like, is my, I don't spend that much time with my mom or my dad or my aunt or my uncle or my son or my daughter or my brother or my sister, but when I do, and is that them trying to pull me away from the gospel work? And that's the kind of mentality that these kind of places breed, and that's so dangerous, you know what I mean? And it's messed up.
It
um
is.
Yeah.
It's exactly what they plant.
uh,
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely that like just hearing you say that, it's like, oh man, I've heard that before. And I feel like hearing it makes me, now that I think back, like it it creates this like feeling inside of me that just wants to like not care, because it's easier that way. Like, because you feel a certain way about treating your family, leaving your friends, and I mean, definitely those are the regrets you feel when you leave, like all that stuff that you did. But it's like when you hear them, when I heard you say that, it's just making me feel like, oh, how numb it makes you inside when you think that way. And
yeah,
it kind of goes back to that same thing with how they treat deaths, and those kinds of situations, because you mentally cannot, like, it's hard to accept, because pretty much, you just go on thinking that your family is not going to be saved and they're the devil, and you had a purpose to save other people, and and they were there to hinder you, so it's like that is so crazy that it's like you telling that story just really shows how deep, like, or how, yeah, how deep the members are, in in their, um like, not concern about people. And if they don't concern about people like that in general, they don't concern about really anybody, because they can say at one point they concerned about us, but they don't. We left, right? So they don't concern about us. So it's definitely a conditional thing,
yeah.
you know.
And ask yourself, members, like, lay the doctrine. I know it's hard. I know you think we're evil spirits, we're Judas, we're whatever, but lay doctrine aside for a second and just think to yourself for a minute. Like, if time is so precious, we don't know, how long we have our loved ones, cherish the time. Cherish the time. Don't, I miss so much, with from my family, and I remember. Here's another thing that they do, that they're very good at this, and yet they cry and say that they never teach us to separate from families or loved ones or to cut anyone off. But we all know that that's a lie.
It's a lie.
But one way they do that, another way they do that, is by telling us, if they know we love our family so much. I remember, like, one of the times they try to get me to go to establish a church. And I told them I can't leave my parents because they have so many health issues. And I remember that they said, brother, don't you know that if you were to leave your parents for the gospel work, Even if they don't believe, father, mother will save them through your faith. In other words, they were just trying to push me out of, get me out of there. And the way they try to justify it is by something that's not even biblical.
I was taught
and
that too.
that's so funny coming from a church that says that they
Mhm.
have the perfect truth and only preach what's out of the Bible. Tell me, World Mission Society, where is that in the Bible? Because no one comes to the Father except through Jesus. It's our own faith. It's not the faith of our parents and no, no, no. It's our faith. So
Mhm.
you see, they justify and they twist the Bible when it's convenient to them for them in order to isolate you, to separate you. And like you guys said earlier, they want us to spend every waking minute in the church so that, in my opinion, so that you don't have time to think. So you don't have time to reflect about what's going on, how your life is crumbling, because you're
Mhm.
surrounding yourself with people who are just like you on the inside. You could be going through a mental breakdown. You could be going through a lot, but you'll never show that inside the church because the mentality that they create, the environment that they create, children of promise 144,000, they have no emotions. You cannot show a member that you're going through a hard time. What kind of faith do you have, brother? Mother pushes through everything, right? And what they do is they cause us to suppress all these feelings, and we're just there, just trying to go through it and go through it and go, and we don't get the help that we need. We don't get to
Mhm.
grieve. We miss so many things with family, friends, loved one. We miss so many things about ourselves, our health, so many things.
Mhm.
And so when members, if they're lucky enough to leave, picking up the pieces when you first leave is one of the hardest things to do. But like I always say, it's still better than being another day inside the WMSCOG.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mhm.
Marissa, let's get back to your story a little bit. So tell me, what was life like in Zion? Like what were some of the good things that because obviously I think one thing we all agree on is that there's good people in there. So tell me
Yeah.
some of the good things and some of the bad things. Take me through your time there in general.
I think that, I recently I still have friends who are there. And so like one of the things that they were curious about, when I left and spoke out at first, they were like, what about all the laughs and the good times, like in all the memories, right? They're like, why? And I'm like, 100%. Like, the reason I speak out isn't because of you guys. Like, it's because of the top in the organization, like what they really are. That's a problem, right? Like, we're like giving up everything in our life for what we think is true God in the flesh. And when that's not like it, like, that's a problem. But like, things that have happened, like the memories, the traveling, the laughs, all the even the suffering like together, those are like the good times, like I don't know, you remember probably both of you like going to Estes Park for 3 days. Like studying hours on end, like that's not like super fun for like people on the outside, but when you think you're studying the deepest prophecy of prophecy and there's all this mathematical stuff on the board and like you're like chugging bangs and like talking to each other and staying up late and then you're popping caffeine pills and you're just like you're
Toothpicks in the eyes.
yeah and like oh, I had so many like good times preaching that now is just so crazy to think about. But like they were good times.
Mhm.
Like when we'd go to people's doors. Like one time, me and my best friend went to this door in this little town called Yoder, Wyoming, and this guy comes like crawling out with its like leg ripped up, and they're like, "I am the Lamb of God," and like the people you witness. Like and we never stopped talking about that. We're like, do you remember that crazy guy? And like and then there's this
Uh,
one, like just all the different like experiences that you went through together. Like you'd be preaching for hours on end, and like the leader would come through driving by throwing like McDonald's burgers at us. It would be like finally food, and we'd be eating on the curb, and then we'd like say a prayer for prayer time, and then we'd go on. Like
Yeah.
those are like really like you do like for the people that are good people in there, just like us, like, and we're all like the same age. We're all, especially when we've been in there for like a decade or so, like those are like, we did become like family, and we did form
Mhm.
like these bonds that don't feel any different toward them now at all. I don't feel like they're like crazy cult people because we were once them. Like they're just people who are still in that situation and who I still like love just the same. It's just I'm over here now, which
Yeah.
is like
Mhm.
kind of hurtful and
Yeah.
awkward because it's like, hey, I love you guys. Like one thing, I'm sorry, this is trailing off, but I still dream a lot about them. And like I
Mm.
have dreams that like I will go on a trip with them, like on a short term, but it's not a short term, it's more like a vacation for the members. And I go because I miss and love them so much, even though I know and they know I don't believe. They're like,
Wow.
because I miss
Yeah.
them. So it's just ridiculous. But
From now on, they're gonna every vacation, every trip, they're gonna be like, "Is she here?"
Yeah.
no, but yeah. No, it
That's
just
crazy.
there's like
Yeah.
countless like memories and good times. Like when we were
Yeah.
establishing the house church in Casper, like we'd all for days on end be there, sleeping on the floor, getting up to go preach, eating good Korean food, kimchi, like just all the
Yeah.
different like memories of spending all that time together and all the
Mhm.
laughs and all the like especially the Daniel Park days like
That second coming Christ to you guys, okay?
yeah, sorry, my bad.
Is it right?
So let's jump into a little bit of that. Let's get into good old Pastor Daniel Park. So in your experience in Wyoming, right? So you guys would come a lot to Denver. I think all of us, the different churches we in the Midwest, we'd all gather in Denver, Colorado. So like how many times can you remember from 2014 until you got out did you hear that the world was gonna end?
I mean, especially your Jubilee for sure. But
Yeah.
like I feel like every year after that, because like, like it's almost like, like there's the year Jubilee and it's time to be set free. Go back home. The slaves are set free. So like that was like for sure. Like, and we were specifically taught like this is it. There's no way that it's not it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, like, I remember we were all in the meeting room after the time had passed, and our leader said, like, we got the notice that it's not time to run, it's time to walk. And we were all like, our leader said that to us, and we were all like, What do you mean walk? How do we walk? Why, why,
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like 2016, 2017 was like time to establish, it was time to preach to 7 billion people, and you need to establish churches, churches, churches. And I remember at that time, like that being so ingrained. And like we talked about last time, like you just got off of a high of like really thinking you're not just like your life's gonna end, but the whole world's gonna end. And it didn't happen. And now you don't have a life outside of this. So, like, what's the next thing so that we could do it? Like, right? Like, God must be doing something and leading us somewhere. So now it's time to preach to 7 billion and establish the house churches, which also like sorry in between that in 2016 I was on the 66 visiting trip to meet mother. So I feel like after the year of Jubilee, I got to do that. And that was like a staple in my like life of faith. And then 2016, 2017, I was so like ready to go more. Pastor Daniel Park was so like, it's time to establish churches. And I was like, there's no way like I can't be a part of this. And I like
Mhm.
kind of feel like I forced my partner to be a house church leader. And we were for like 2 years in Laramie, Wyoming, which is the town next to Cheyenne. So from
And
20, yeah.
how was that like experience with the, because I gotta ask, because you said around 2017, and if I remember correctly, 2017 was the year of resurrection
Yep.
and the open door prophecy, and the only one that's going to go through the door is the ones who have the keys, and the keys represent spiritually the keys to a Zion. So if you have a Zion, and for those that aren't in the Midwest, you won't understand. This is part of Pastor Daniel Park's teachings, but yeah, so we pretty much had a different
Yeah.
prophecy every year. 2017 was the year of the spiritual resurrection, the dry bones, and they were going to come back to life. 144,000. They were going to get the keys to their own kingdom, the Zions. And so he would take it back to Exodus, and he would say the reason why they were protected in the houses is because, think about it, it was a house, right? So everyone that was inside that specific house, the blood was on the door frame because of the firstborn, right? Firstborn representing 144,000. So same, who wants to be left out of that? Because what is he implying there? If you don't have the keys, you cannot be 144,000. If you don't have, if you're not
Mhm.
144,000, then you'll be destroyed. But if you're 144,000 and you get to establish one of these kingdoms, the plagues or World War III will pass over you, right? And so, of course, we all wanted to go, but why? Because of the things that they were teaching us. If they weren't
Mhm.
teaching us these things, we wouldn't want to do those things. But it's just so
Exactly.
crazy how they make us move, what I mean, with what they say, but they cover themselves by not telling us like directly. They do it in a way, they twist scripture in order to make us do these things without literally directly telling us to do it specifically. And sometimes they do tell you, straight up. Like I've seen many
Mhm.
times where sometimes members didn't get the prophecy, and like some of the missionaries would just be like, yo, you need to do this or you need to do that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so how
Yeah.
was that for you, like when you were a house church leader?
Uh, it was rough because obviously like you said, it was the resurrection. 2014 was like the spiritual Passover, 2015 was like the spiritual crucifixion, which they actually taught like right mother was being crucified between the with the pickets.
Explain that, please. Explain that.
Okay. So, oh my gosh. So, uh Pastor Daniel Park's educations in 2015 was like showing us that like Passover is like the covenant. Like, so 2014, that was like the year of Jubilee. And
Mhm.
then like 2015, so the day after Passover, Christ was crucified between two robbers. And in the same way, the Christ now mother was being picketed, like picketed in Korea outside of the church, like saying like she's a false Christ with her face, like with a picket between two other Korean false Christs. So he was saying like she was like the true Christ in between the two robbers on the left and right side.
Mhm.
And we were all
So
really like, oh my gosh, she
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
that's
The
the worst.
spiritual
Yeah,
crucifixion.
Right.
that is
The
the worst
spiritual
thing.
crucifixion.
Like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, how can they compare Jesus crucifixion to someone getting picketed? You know what I mean? Like that is, but hey, cult logic, I guess.
We were lost in the
Um,
sauce. We were like, and my poor fruit best friend, like she was like crying, like this is what like solidified her faith even more. Was like,
Wow.
why would someone live like that? You
yeah.
know?
Mhm.
What do you
So
got, Amy?
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marissa. Go ahead.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I just was gonna say like so 2017, like there was like the spiritual, it was almost like how could you not go and be a house church leader? How could you not? Unless you really just couldn't because of something. Then like you'd still be blessed in other ways, like support the church, support
Mhm.
the members who are being sent out, then you're still good. But I was so lost in the sauce. I'm like, no, we're gonna do like we are able to, we can, we're gonna, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like that's so terrible like looking back, like like you just
Mhm.
you want to be the front line. You don't want to you don't want to miss an opportunity,
Mhm.
you know? And like the way he pumps people up and the way he, like, I don't think anyone could understand unless you were there. But
Yeah.
like,
Right.
so that's what we did. Me and my 2-year-old son, he was about to turn 2, and his dad went to do a house church, which is not good from the get-go because even in his point of view, he was not someone who did sermon book. He is not someone who is an extrovert. He doesn't want to stand up there and give sermons, but he has to. So like
Mhm.
from the get, that was like a bad idea, and I like kind of forced him because I'm like, "Come on, you could, like, like in a way, like that was like that. If you're gonna go and do that, that has to be like the brother's wish, because like they're the one leading the service in the house church and stuff like that. So like even like Pastor Daniel knowing that was like hi- his character, he shouldn't even have let us. But of course, like he let us. And when Pastor Daniel Park was wanting to open the Laramie Church, he met with me, not him, and like asked me why I wanted to do it. And I like recited like because it's the prophecy, I want to be like the good Samaritan, like blah 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 blah. Like me and
Yeah.
Pastor Daniel Park met when all that was like none of that like it happened, but like it was just like not it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we ended up needing to like come back for a whole other reasons to Cheyenne in 2019 to be a part of the Cheyenne church again.
Mhm.
And it was
Crazy.
an experience. I remember like, people I loved because like my exes, like my kids' side of the family, a lot of their family live in Laramie. So even like a cousin ended up getting baptized and she was like my fruit and like that meant like that like hit like like when you're lost in the sauce, like you said, like with your friend Edgar, by the time you're like not so lost in the sauce anymore, you're like, maybe I did. But when you're lost in the sauce, you really want them to come and
Mhm.
believe wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
And she was like coming and studying and understood and was really into it, like that good fruit at the beginning. And I was so happy. And it was just a house church, you know? So I was so moved that she wanted to come. And then in Laramie, she brought someone, and that someone was baptized, but that someone found the book about the New Jerusalem and the women's veil, right? So she found that out, and I was like, crap, you know? And then I had to defend the book to both of them. And looking back, like I only defended it based on what we were taught, how we were taught to
Mhm.
defend it.
Mhm.
And that book was enough for them to be like, I'm good, right?
Mhm.
I don't want to come back. But the way they didn't push at me either to be like, no, look at what it says. Does that make sense? So then I also was like, oh, the book made him
Mhm.
fall away. But I didn't dig anymore at that time into that book, which is like one of the reasons that made me start to want to leave later recently. But even back then, me
Mhm.
defending that book and then that book being enough for them not to want to come back, they weren't in the position to be like, no, Marissa, you need to look at what the book says, right? And like reevaluate that didn't happen. So I was just kind of like super heartbroken that like, so I was going through a lot at that time too. I was really depressed. Like the house church isn't doing good and there's so much pressure and like depression with that in itself. Like we're going to be failed church leaders. It's like
So
wreaking
Mhm.
havoc.
let me
Yeah.
say something real quick because that what
Mhm.
you said at the end right there, that stood out to me. Failed church leaders, right?
Mhm.
What why is that important? Because you left in the first place because that's supposed to be automatic sealed 144,000. You get sent out, you establish a house church, you're good. But just like everything else in the WMSCOG, that's just at the beginning. Once you do what they ask you to do, you never reach the finish line in that place. They constantly move the goalposts over and over and over and over again. Later, you went out and tried to be 144,000 and establish a house church, then you get rebuked, for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like instead of it going smoother, it actually gets worse. The more like responsibilities you have, the more expectations that they have for you, and they're unrealistic. Like
Mhm.
unless you're just, like you just neglect your entire life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's sad. You know what I mean? Because I feel like the people that do the most in there like have completely just neglected like everything and everyone.
You know,
Hmm.
I want to mention something about that just to point out that you just made me think of. I feel like for us, right? Maybe for us specifically. Okay, get this. There's these church leaders in this church that are just like perfect for the gospel. They don't have any family holding them back. A lot of their whole family is even in the church. Like I know a couple church leaders, their parents are in the church, right? Their siblings and like they are like fully supported by the church. Like they're in deep. They have like the perfect situation to be the perfect church leaders, right? And like I feel like people like us who maybe don't have like the spouse to be able to do that with, or our parents have health problems we need to, or we have children, like these two specific leaders or couple I'm thinking about don't even have kids. Like for some reason for us, it's just not like the perfect scenario, which in the end, that's actually our blessing. Because for the
Yeah.
people that are super deep in, like I hope they will see one day, but they have like their situation's perfect for their whole life to be there, which is like what we've always envied. Like if I just had a different like spouse, like or and I have kids, like at the end of the day, like that's like I can't be like them.
Right.
Hmm.
Which like
Hmm.
I'm not like saying anything bad about them, but I'm like, man, they're really set up to just like I want them to leave. I hope they leave, but like they're the
Hmm.
same people we like wished we had that life.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Until
the
you leave.
perfect storm.
Yeah, the perfect
Yeah.
A plus. Like we are like, oh, I'll never
Yeah.
like be
Hmm.
like that because I already
Yeah.
have kids and like the person I
Hmm.
end up being with isn't like you know? When it
Right.
shouldn't be like that anyway. Everyone is should be like have a
Hmm.
unique situation and not me to feel pressured that that's like the best like we shouldn't nobody should feel like that. That's very
Right.
culty. Like we should all have our very
Right.
unique lives and families and us all be loved the
Hmm.
same and us all be just as equally important.
Hmm. But it's important that you mention that though, because it's like it shows that that couple in general, that those are the ones that should be, motivated to go do something. And no, hold on. No. Yeah, I'm doing this. Go see your dad. Sorry. Go see your dad. He just smiled. I don't think you guys saw him, but he just smiled. I don't
That's
know, we're probably
awesome.
gonna have to cut that part out, but um uh I can't remember what I was saying.
Hey, it's a
Um
you go ahead, Marissa. You gonna
She
what was
she's
Amy
we're
saying?
about to say like a couple, like that same
oh,
couple.
like I feel like now the church is starting to have like requirements for those who can be leaders, right? But like you mentioned before, at that time everybody wanted to go. But it doesn't matter the circumstance. It doesn't matter if there are scenarios that we had to have, like to be able to get an apartment. Like if you couldn't go get an apartment, you weren't going to be used, or if you couldn't go get a house, you couldn't be used. So there are those things, but I feel like the mission ultimately came from the top because it was to establish all those house churches. So whatever education we received, it was only because the leaders are put on them to encourage everybody, right? So
Yeah.
what they encourage us with these prophecies. So they made us feel like this was what we had to do to be a part of prophecy. Even to the
Yes.
point where I remember hearing, are you going to stand and watch prophecy?
Yep.
Meaning, are you not going to do a house? Like
Yeah,
it's like they don't say it directly, but in a way, right? Like, are
they
you
do.
not going to go do this? But they, I feel like many members, many members have gone to establish houses. Like, so your situation and what you went through in just those 2 years is like they didn't care what they had to put you through. And most of the time while you're there, if you're going through a hardship, hey, we can't pay the water bill, they're not gonna
No.
help. right? They're going to say that that's the sacrifice. You have to know Father's sacrifice, you know? So they put that on you, you know? But I think it's really important to know that this organization, what you went through and like the strain that they put you through is something they easily do to many members. Like many
Yeah.
members, like how many house churches went and left. And then most of the time, these members are still just in the church, right?
Right.
Become sometimes like normal members or maybe leaders, but their hope is probably to be a leader again, right? So
Yeah.
that is always at the back of your head. I feel like not even just the Midwest. I feel like Daniel Park just put it into a perspective that allowed us to see something, you know, but it's the same thing no matter what church you go to because that's the doctrine that they have. That's, you know, it's as simple as that, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's a good point, and churches. It's so funny that churches, like Amy was pointing out, like they start up, and a lot of them actually ended up closing down. And so WMSCOG love to point out the Bible. So let me use a verse, Acts 5:38, the one they love to use, right? If
Yep.
if your purpose or activity is of God, right, it will never fail, right? Leave these men alone, right? Because they cannot fail. Wait a second. They established a kingdom of God on earth, but it failed. They had to go back because I know for a fact, like at least two, if not three churches here where I'm from in Kansas closed down. They were established like a little bit after Jubilee and closed down. So does that mean by their own logic that they're not of God? Oh no, they're gonna
No.
switch that one up, right?
They would say it was the specific like leaders, like, oh, they weren't like focused, or it was their error. It was their like it was
mhm,
the church leaders like sin or something,
mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
not father mother. It was the members who were leading that church. They weren't yeah, like they're always gonna have something to say.
And the
Mhm.
crazy part, because that just reminded me of one of the churches, because I was sent to go keep service. We would rent a hotel in Blackwell, Oklahoma, and I would lead service with the members that we baptized there during the year of Jubilee. And that was, very important thing was to establish, God's kingdom all over the earth or whatever, right? Well, these people, I have videos of them on my phone still. There was like we would pack out that hotel. It was a quite a bit of members. They were faithful, you know. But what happened was, after a certain amount of time, they just pulled the plug on that. They never got the building or anything. And the members would literally still reach out to us. And I remember I asked the leader one time, like, so what's going on with this? And they're like, oh, they just have to keep their own faith. And it's kind of like just switch the subject. And I now that I think about it, it's like, so what happens to all those people, right? So one thing is if it's the leader, like like Marissa was saying, they can blame the leadership, but what about the members? You know what I mean? So, these
Yeah.
Mhm.
members, so they just expect them to pack up and move to their closest Zion. You know what I mean? Like some of these people were elderly people, you know what I mean? Like it's just so it just
Exactly.
doesn't add up. It's just at the end of the day, I mean, you just have to be blind to not see that this place is ran like it's an organization. At the end of
Well,
the day, it's an organization.
and like you
Mhm.
were saying, like there, like I had same situations probably where Amy was at too, in Wyoming. Like if they're were not establishing a church there, they need to keep their faith. But when you think about it, how do they keep their faith? They're still new. What if they do something wrong? And we were specifically taught at other times during COVID, if you even keep Passover wrong, even a little bit, it doesn't count. So you're gonna tell me all these members who just need to keep their faith, like keep their faith how? Are they not
Right.
required to keep Sabbath day? You would never say that. And if they do something wrong on Sabbath day or they get service wrong a little bit, their service shouldn't be counted, right? Because our Passovers wouldn't be counted if we tweak something up wrong.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but cult logic, chalk it up to cult logic again. This place is just so inconsistent and sloppy. and yet they're so adaptive to everything that's going on. I know off camera we were talking a little bit about like a comment that I got on YouTube, but I think it'd be cool to kind of share it with the audience too, because I just got this today, and just to show how adaptive and reactive this place is. So on one of the videos on the Red Flag Friday, a member commented saying, "Speaking of the church being adaptive, I heard they just did an education telling members that they should go home in between services to join family events on Sabbath days. They acknowledge the fact that families will be turned off if members say they can't spend time with them due to the church. The missionary also said that it's always been done that way in Korea, and he doesn't understand why Americans decided to do it differently." Well, maybe Americans weren't the ones who decided to do it differently. Maybe it was the Koreans that they sent over here that taught the Americans that way. And that is the reason why we did what we did, not the other way around. You know what I mean? It's just so crazy to me.
Yeah, because
Like,
then why couldn't I have taken a nap with my newborn in between service?
exactly.
Because you need to be adaptive, right? Because you know how crazy that sounds.
Yeah.
That I'm
Mhm.
not
It's,
even able to sleep with my newborn in between one service, no matter how faithful I had been up until that time.
and I mean, look, again, like we said, I think we all agreed, like there's so many amazing people in that place. Some of us, we still have people that are good friends to us in there. And to the whole WMSCOG, like I got love for everybody in there except the people that know that it's wrong and continue to do it.
Yes.
But as far as that goes, like, I mean, like I always say, like, when is enough evidence enough evidence? You know what I mean? For members to realize kind of what's going on, how they switch things up, you know what I mean, on the fly. And right now, reading that comment, like I'm all for the members that are still there. If like I'm happy that they're making it more lax for them so that they don't have to this new wave of members don't have to go through what we went through.
Yeah.
But that also brings something else to mind because, I feel like they're reacting and adapting to what's being said about them online, and they're changing up a lot of things. They're softening up in a lot of different areas to make it more comfortable for the members, and I'm happy for that. Again, I really am,
Right.
genuinely, because of for the members, sanity, for their mental, for their families that get to spend time, you know what I mean, with their loved ones that are still in that place. But I still have to say, like, even if they did everything right, it doesn't change the fact that they have the wrong gospel. They're following false gods. And at the end of the day, as much love as I have for them, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I'm still a Christian, you know what I mean? And it just sucks because ultimately, like, we are all human beings and we have an expiration date, you know what I mean? And I've seen a lot of the most nicest people, you know what I mean? I've met a lot of members, like I remember three right off the back that passed away, unfortunately. And it's those kind of things that really make me angry about the cult, because not only are they playing with your physical life, but they're also playing with your spiritual life. And a lot of the times, it's very sad to say, in my opinion, like when members do leave this place, most of the time, like in a lot of cases, they don't want anything to do with God anymore, and they take that from you. You know what I mean? Like, they take that from you, and I think that's having your faith is one of the most sacred things that you could have. And these people are not content with just destroying your life physically, mentally, but even spiritually. and it's just sad. And so that's why I'm very thankful for people like you guys who are willing to speak up, because I feel like the more and more that we speak up about the things going on in places like this, the more awareness we're bringing and the more people are coming out, and we're this is really amazing, and all for like it's amazing to hear families, like hear stories like, oh, I got my son back, I got my daughter back, my brother, my sister. And so, just I know I kind of went off track there, but just thank you guys, honestly, like, because people like you guys are awesome, and you guys are doing a lot. But anyway, Marissa, let's get back to your story. I know this episode's been kind of cool because we just been jumping off the walls, going off topic, but it's cool. I
Well,
love it.
I just wanted to add to that really quick because like I have friends who are still in there, and I feel like that it is like you said, it is evolving and becoming more adaptive, and I do see where like that's in their favor, and like almost like we're not the same young, hit the ground running for the gospel, we're about to go to heaven. Like they we're older now. We are moms. They have things, they have hobbies or like they have jobs and they're finally like, one's resuming her schooling, because we do know they adapted. Before it was like leave your school, leave your job, and now it's like, oh no, stay in school. It's a good opportunity for the gospel. We know how it's changed. So like the other one I talked to, she's like, I respect that like you don't want to go anymore. Like you loved me even when I didn't even like God, like before we were both baptized. Like our relationships like run deeper than like the church, the cult, WMSCOG. And like she was like, this is just like the closest to the Bible for because she doesn't know any better. We all see with the lens of Whimsgog. So like she's like, this is the closest church that follows the Bible to me, and it's just like what I want. And like I'm like, okay, I respect that. And like she respects that I don't want to believe it anymore, right? And like you said, Edgar, I'm like, I feel happy for them that maybe they are loosening up and they can have more of a balance in a life and not feel so enslaved. But at the same time, the reason that, like, I know that when I did the first video where I spoke out, it hurt them because they're like, oh, like she's on there now. And like it hurt them because we're taught that, like, if you're dissing your father and mother and you're dissing the church, then you're dissing all of us. Like, like it's a little bit of a sting, even though we know her and we love her, that hurts. And it's like, it's nothing against you guys. Like, I love you guys. But at the end of the day, like, where are we giving 10% of our tax return, 10% of our money? Where are we dedicating every single ounce of our time? What we think is for the true God and it's not, that's a problem. I
Yes.
love you guys. Sometimes I want to show up and hug you all because I love you guys. And I do. Like, I want to eat a meal with you. I miss that to this day. But like from the top, I'm not giving any money to those people. I don't want to give any of my time to those people, to the top, general pastor, like Zong Gilja, those people. But to the
Yeah.
people who don't know any better, like it's not anything against them and it's hard to like explain that.
Mhm.
Yeah. It sucks because hearing you say that again brings back the us versus them mentality that they instill
Mhm.
in the members. But I love the members. There's so many people. Even look, I don't care. You guys know me. I say names. I don't care. Deacon Murray,
Yep.
Deacon Adam,
Yeah.
Deacon Dane. What's up, man?
Yeah.
You was cool, bro. Like I got love for
Yeah.
so many
Deacon
people. Like
David, Deaconess Ruby.
yeah, yeah, so many people. Deacon Jared, you know what I mean? Like so many outstanding people in that place, And look, man, I have no animosity towards any of you guys. Like I'd love to catch a bite to eat and you know what I mean, to talk and just catch up. And I've messaged a lot of these deacons, you know what I mean, missionaries, you know what I mean? Like I only got one response back. And but that being said, like it's all love. It's all love. We know what you guys think, because we thought the same way, and
Yeah.
We but at the end of the day, I think that that's it's a very fine line, Marissa and Amy. It's a very fine line, because sometimes I catch myself like not saying like talking about how it's wrong, what I mean, when you're trying to talk about how much love you have for the members, because you don't want to interrupt, ruin that relationship that's very vulnerable. But at the same time, I mean, truth is truth.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, truth is more important. And I said this in my story on Great Light Studios. When I was first coming out of the WMSCOG, I was torn, because I really believed this. I mean, I believed it. I really, really, to those who know me from the Midwest, that I would die for Zangyoja and Nansanhong, like. And it was easier for me when I realized that it was not true. It would have been way easier for me to just push everything under the rug and just continue, because I already had a lot of members didn't get the chance to bring their parents in, or their closest family or friends. I had brought all of them in. You know what I mean? My mom, my dad, my cousin, my brother, like my best friends. We lived inside the church. I was well respected inside the church. I was always whichever. They knew the one thing about me is I did not want to get sent out anywhere. But because of that reason, every time a new church leader would come, I would always be the right hand of whoever the church leader was. And at that time, when everything happened, I remember thinking to myself, if I, what do I do with this information? What do I do with what I just realized by studying the Bible, by looking at the history? Do I just push it under the rug and just, accept what they say? Like, oh, just read the green book more. It's like, well, no, I've read it, and that's why I'm doubting. I read his other stuff too, and this is why. It's not because of lack of knowledge, it's because I'm reading the so-called God the Father's writings. I'm reading all of that stuff. I'm reading the Bible. I'm not hearing what they're saying on the internet. This was before a lot of this stuff came out. Like, I'm literally into the Bible, and I'm seeing all these discrepancies. And I remember at that time I was so torn because of this, because I said, if I leave, I know I'm gonna lose my mom, my dad, my wife, my best friend, which is my cousin, all the people that I brought in there, everything that I've given up for this place. I don't have any more friends outside. I don't have nothing, and I'm gonna lose everything if I leave. And I remember reading the Bible that night and coming across the verse where Jesus says, "What good is it for a man to gain the whole world yet forfeit his soul?" And that was the last. After that is when I realized, like, it doesn't matter, because truth is truth. And even though it was hard, especially in the beginning, because when I left, no one followed me. Like, literally, everybody thought I was nuts. Everybody thought like I was crazy. I got 7 demons in me. I was Judas. I was this. I was that. But because I stayed the course, like, thankfully, a lot of my mom, my dad, my wife, like, one by one. And so I just encourage the members that might be watching this, that might be thinking, oh, I'm gonna lose my friends, I'm gonna the people, my loved ones in the church, and these relationships, and I brought my family in, and it can be done. But you have to be the first person to step out. You have to be the brave one to step out and inform yourself. At the end of the day, if it's still true, you could always go back. But I guarantee you, when you take a step back and examine the facts, you'll see for yourself what the best decision to make is. Um, that being said, Marissa, so take me to some of, maybe like some of the red flags that you saw while you were in the cult. too many
Uh,
to count.
yeah,
We'd be here for 2 days.
yeah. Just, I think, one of the red flags I always had a hard time with was just the how the children were treated in the beginning. Like how they were just treated like such a burden and such a distraction and uh it wasn't until like I feel like they got more adaptive that they started really giving attention to the children like they were important and started the I Like God books. And I think it was because one kid who went to school was singing a new song in school and he was going destruction, unheard of disasters, that song. And like they
Oh,
realized like oh like these are like what the and like, the kids they'll all tell like all the family members everybody at the school like you're going to hell like that Christmas thing over there like you're going to hell like that's Satan. And so like they're like maybe we need more like like uh material for the kids. And it's just I don't know for I just feel like they have so much control on like how you are as a parent, how you are as a spouse, who you are allowed to marry and date. Like I feel like there's so much control on your whole life that that's one huge red flag. You literally cannot do anything for your life unless it's approved by the church. Who you date, what you do with your children, where you go to travel, you better ask permission. You better, you got to keep, of course, service wherever you go. So you need to be approved to go keep service over there. It's just like every little thing in your life, it has to be approved. You have to ask for permission, and that is your whole life. And they very much teach that. They're like, "Oh, is your faith an accessory?" Like it's just an accessory if you just go to church on Sabbath day and then you live the way you want to live 7 days a week. So you really are guilted like this literally has to be my whole life. Or else like I'm just one of those superficial Christians who treats it as an accessory.
yeah,
And
a
I
law
think,
keeper.
Mhm.
yeah,
But good, but to mention though, not just like be a Christian the other days of the week, but to physically be in the building doing what they've assigned as gospel work.
exactly.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because where
yeah,
were you
not
during the preaching meeting or like the education?
right.
And like, even when, okay, you
Hmm.
can't make it to Zion, like you should be doing your EDULMS at home in your Prayer Daily app. Like you're so indoctrinated and that's all that consumes you. Even if you are at home. If you're one of those people who has kids and you didn't make it, which you're going to feel guilty about anyway because you should be there and you
Hmm.
should be participating. At home, if you didn't make it, keep nailing hammering the nail in. Like
Hmm.
you should be doing your EduLMS and they'll announce on the Sabbath day who's been doing it, who hasn't been, and those who have, you know, pers progressed get an applause. And it's just that is your whole life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like I think we're such law keepers and we're so indoctrinated that this has to be our whole entire life. When we do leave it, we feel like and like that's why you said, Edgar, like unfortunately, a lot of people do like want nothing to do with God because we feel like anything less than that isn't even good enough anyway. And we feel so weird. We feel like we don't know what's
Hmm.
right, what's wrong. And
Hmm.
like I remember having a conversation with one of my friends right after I left, and it was about the Sabbath day, which I'm sure in this, you know, discussion today, we're not going to get into like super doctrinal stuff because we'll go on all night.
Yeah.
But one of the things was about the Sabbath day. And I'm not claiming I'm still, you know, taking my time and baby steps and stuff like that. But the topic was about Sabbath day. And she's like, "Do you not believe in Sabbath day anymore?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, Sabbath day is in the Bible, but like I had said like basically it is so weird because you like that when you're trying to talk with them, they're like, you sound like one of those people. Like you sound like one of
Yeah.
them. And so like basically all I said was, where does it say you need to okay, where does it say you need to keep 3 services all day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. to, for the whole day, over 12 hours. It doesn't, right? And she's like, well, you don't have to. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, you do. Like, and she's like, well, no, like, you don't have to, like, keep it. How did she say it? Like, you don't have to keep every service. And I'm like, but it's frowned upon, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not Sabbath service, it's Sabbath day. So you need to be keeping all three. And if you don't keep all three, you are clearly looked at as one of those members that have weak faith. You just have lukewarm faith. Surely, are the members going to get blessings like participating in tithe and offering or being able to do like flower arrangements? Who are those blessings going to be given to? The member that keeps just morning service or all three?
Mhm.
All
So it's
three.
very much a thing. Like, you can't tell me, even though they may not like say, yes, you have to keep all three, most have actually straight up said it. And also, like, if you don't keep all three, you're just looked down upon. Like, who are you?
Mhm.
What have you been doing all day? Why do you leave in between services? What's so important? How dare you go
Mhm.
get groceries or do something?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
Mhm.
that's
those are red
true.
flags.
They are. They're like, that's like a, we should be waving the flag like this. I mean, literally everything that they do in the WMSCOG is a red flag. But I'm glad you brought that up about the Sabbath. Obviously, we're not going to get into it, but for those members who are watching, because I know this is just, we just do interviews. At one point, I do want to start breaking down doctrine, but as a lot of people know that have reached out to me, I do a lot of studies for the people who reach out to me, so I'm constantly studying. So if anyone has those kind of questions, like about the Sabbath or anything, like you can feel free to reach out. We could study, you could turn your camera off or whatever. Like there are answers to that, all of those things biblically. And pretty soon maybe I'll start doing some more doctrinal focused things on the channel. But there's also Adam's got Finding the Alternative. You could check out his channel. He's got a lot of good stuff where he breaks down the doctrine. And there's a lot of good Christians out there that you could also, but coming from the WMSCOG worldviews, like, you know, I got to stay away from that because they're Babylonians and this and that. But it's what I always tell the members, like, truth is truth. It doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, if, if what you believe, if you're so confident that you have the perfect truth, what are you so scared of? Like, bro, that don't even make any sense. Like, if I'm confident that 2 + 2 = 4, why do I care if this guy over here is telling me it equals 8? If we examine the facts, it's gonna point to what the truth is. And if it doesn't, then that means something's wrong, right? And so this is something that I always tell the members, but there are answers to all those things. So feel free to reach out, members, if you have any of those questions. And Marissa, let's go ahead and wrap things up with my favorite part of the these interviews that we do is how did you get out?
So the way I got out was I have a boyfriend, and which is like a big no-no. But really, like, boyfriend or not, like, we were the type of people like, this is my faith and nothing's gonna change it, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is like what I believe, and like whoever comes in and out of my life is gonna have to like accept that because like I'm ride or die, like, father, mother to pass over till the end. So, it's kind of crazy because um, I had like before he was my boyfriend, I had preached to him way months prior in the park. We like kind of got into like a rebuttal. And I was like, well, anyway, because I like kind of knew him too. So I was like, all right, well, anyway, like if you change your mind, you know how to get a hold of me. And anyway, we started like kind of like dating and seeing each other. And like I like would kind of like hope that he would be like saved, but also like I was at this weird phase where like I was burnt out. I had just been through so much, like from the past recent prior years, and I was just at the point where I'm like, if he's not gonna believe, that's fine. Because I do know of other like sisters who have Gentile husbands and they make it work if it's meant to be. Like the Gentile husband's like, okay, like I respect your faith, and like they literally live like that, even though it's not like ideal maybe for either or, it's doable. So I kind of thought about it being more like that. because I could tell like he had like studied our like church website, like everything about like what we believed. But he had also looked at the other nitty-gritty stuff that we don't go and look at, right? So there'd be okay, so for me, like he also had like a Christian background and like he was like biblically versed. So things that were like common sense to him would never be common sense to a WMSCOG member, right? Like he'd bring to me like Bible verse and I'd be like, "Oh, there's a countermeasure for that." And he's like,
Mhm.
What? Like this is like just literally what it says." So like he thought he'd come to me with like the Bible and I'd be like, "Yeah, I already like know people like try to like use that, but like and then like I'd go do the countermeasure."
Yeah.
Which is crazy because now we talk about how like countermeasures aren't really for the other people. They're for the indoctrinated member to like
Mhm.
seal it and keep us more indoctrinated. Because someone who's
Mhm.
biblically versed, when we give them that countermeasure, they're like, no, you know?
Yeah.
But like it's for us, for like when people come to us with that, like it doesn't work. It's more of a shield for us and it's not for them,
That's a
Mhm.
good point.
which I noticed later on because it's true. Like he would come to me with stuff and I'd be like, yeah, that's not going to work. That's not like it's literally like you don't understand. Like dying a
Mhm.
second time isn't him dying a second time in the flesh. It's like dying a second time, which is a second death, which is the lake of fire. But you wouldn't understand that. Like we're so like
Yeah.
Yes.
and so like I'm like, you're not gonna get to me, like you're just gonna have to end up respecting like this is what I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Until we started like going over the like, the book he wrote, the New Jerusalem and the problems with the woman's veil, or the problems, that book. So I was like, yeah, he wrote that book because of, I'm suing and like, I did my like recited what like we've been taught. But then like after I started really like then I started like he was like this is the whole book and like it talked about like how like On was like you're like mentally insane and ill if you believe that like Jerusalem's a person and this is the unchanging truth of our church. And like I don't know, were you guys ever in the like put on the armor of God and you've seen those videos where they warned us about the
Mhm.
book and the reason why it was written?
Mhm.
So I don't remember the
Mhm.
armor of God, but I remember going to educations about that book with Pastor Daniel Park.
So they
Mhm.
had educations about it and they also had like the armor of God put on the full armor of God part one and part two and maybe part three. I don't know, but that was a whole video on that book. And I never, like, of course, it's information control. They never showed those parts of the book, right?
Mhm.
So then I feel like I'm out of the loop when I'm the one who's supposed to be defending the one who wrote it, which is the God the Father. I'm out of the loop. What do you mean he wrote we're delusional? Like, I just felt like I felt gypped like by them.
Mhm.
Like, why don't you guys tell me this stuff so I could defend it better? How rude. Like, you tell me how to defend it and you give me the information you want to give, but like, we want the whole world to believe this. We want the whole world to believe this. And they have access to this information and we don't, but we just defend what we do know about it and act like we didn't. It's okay that we didn't know the other parts that he said
Mhm.
we're mentally ill if we believe that Jerusalem's a person. That's embarrassing.
Mhm.
Yeah. They have that information. The outsiders have it, and we don't. That's
That's so
Yeah, you
messed
said
up.
that that was a really good point that you just said that like, yeah, how because it's true. Because and you're like, have you guys even read it? Like, why, and the whole world literally can get on, but we have
and
this imaginary barrier.
do you guys remember ever saying to someone like, I read it? I know I
Yeah.
did. I'm guilty of it. I didn't
Yeah, I
read
know what you're
none of
talking about.
his stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I read it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
well, that don't mean nothing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
crazy,
guilty.
crazy
Like,
work.
I know what book you're
Mhm.
talking about, and here's why he wrote it. And like, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
then, that's why I was pointing out earlier when I had to defend that book several years prior, it didn't escalate because they were like, well, Marissa, they didn't like, they were just
Mhm.
so knew themselves. They were like, turned
Yeah.
off by it, but they didn't pressure me like he did. He's like, no,
Mhm.
like, look. And then that forced me to take a moment to be like, wait, what did he say?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, I started just, what do you call that? Like reflecting. Like, why didn't they share that with us? That's kind of
Mhm.
a weird. And then
Mhm.
the three missing chapters of, the Green Book. And I remember going over multiple educations with Daniel Park on like why the end of the world was 1988 and why 2012. And it wasn't that they were the end of the world. It was like, you know, just like prophecy, like the completion of the Jerusalem temple. And like there's a reason those dates happen. And we're so lost in the sauce that we're like, oh yeah, like he didn't mean it was like the actual end of the world. It was like just everybody kind of thought that, even though we witnessed it
Yeah.
in Jubilee ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When I see what he wrote about when I saw what he actually wrote about 1988, I was like, hmm,
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay. And then but still like those things made me feel uneasy. Um, and it just made me feel like, well, this is like why they tell you not to go on the internet, right? It's like you're gonna commit spiritual suicide because it's like, well, no, duh. You're hiding all this stuff, and it's like they're like, oh, going, like, and then it just really messes with the members because they're like, see, you went on the internet and you died, and it's
Mhm.
like, well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because inevitably you're gonna see stuff they don't want you to see,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it shouldn't be like that. Like, it shouldn't be sin to go and
Mhm.
look at that stuff, right? Like, that's just what he wrote. And
Mhm.
why wouldn't they show those bits and pieces to us if
Mhm.
that's what God wrote?
Mhm.
Right.
And
Right.
they're like, well, because like it had a time and place, just like the food regulation changed from, vegetables and Adam and Eve
Mhm.
to Noah eating everything to Moses eating only clean animals. It was
Mhm.
like on said there's no bride, and then he said there was a bride. And it's like, but why go so far to say like this is the unchanging truth? To say you're delusional if you believe that, and then to publish it twice, and then not to have any evidence that he's the one who tried to withdraw the books and
Mhm.
collect them.
Uh, yeah. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. I mean, I'm sorry, WMSCOG, but you got to get it together. Start coming up with some better lies at least, because I mean,
Right.
the whole wedding banquet thing. Oh, father was waiting so eagerly for the last Passover because for 6,000 years he's been waiting to reveal her, and now it finally happened. Now he can proclaim it at the top of his lungs. But wait a second, if he died in 1985, but his last Passover where he revealed her, where she was no longer off limits, was 1984. That means he had an entire year from 1984 to 1985 to, do what they say was what he was waiting for this whole time, which is
Mhm.
reveal her. He did nothing. And to Marissa's point, he wrote a book saying there is no mother god, and that anyone
Uh-huh.
who has that kind of idea is delusional, and that Jerusalem is a place, not a person. And he even mentions how scandalous it would even be to think that Sarah could represent the heavenly Jerusalem and it be a mother, like an actual person. Because he said, if that's the case, if Isaac represents Christ, but Isaac is the son of Sarah, then that means Christ married his own mother. And he says, how scandalous is that? And he says, this
Mhm.
doesn't change. And to Marissa's point, the book was published twice. And again, if you're telling me, oh well, you're giving me all these excuses of why that book doesn't matter and it was a certain time limit, yo, why didn't Ansan Hong publish one afterwards saying, hey, this was something reserved for her, or she is Mother God. Look at this and that. Wrote up nothing. So it's like, you can't make it make sense. You have to force it. You have to literally shut off your logical part of your brain, and then just accept with a blind faith whatever they say.
Which is what they're
Mm-hmm.
good at doing because they use the
Mm-hmm.
Bible to their own advantage, just like Isaac, Abraham was about to sacrifice his own son. You say you just need to use your own logic all the time. Well, if Abraham did that, wouldn't he have been like, this is my only son? Like, why do I have to do this? No, you need to blindly follow. Like they use so much to where like ultimately we get in our own head about everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you had mentioned earlier too, Marissa, about like when you first saw the book, you just didn't dig further. Like you heard the book, you explained what you knew, but you didn't dig further. And I feel like that is also like a trained response. That is something that we are taught there.
Yep.
And whenever anything that goes against what we have as the understanding, we just do our best to explain it, but we think that because we didn't go in to look at it, we're like avoiding Satan. Like that is definitely something that they teach, and they want members to be scared to watch videos. And it's like
We are.
when
We
you
were.
oh yeah, yeah, never yeah, it's a shock. I think most members that come out when they do watch the videos, it is it can be a shock because you follow the rules, you follow the instructions, and when you're told that it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you're given these videos, ha- uh, mother's sacrifice, right? Part one, two, three, like that also lays out the same kind of idea, and they portray it in a way where they already know that when people get on, they're going to leave. They know it. So how do you fear them? How do you fear your members? You create a a problem, and then they already know the solution. Don't go on there or you're going to die. Well, of course, not really die, but actually you live. You're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna
Right.
have the best life ever.
Preach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's ridiculous how they really they twist that. Members are we get so you get so scared, and you get scared when you're leaving to even mention it to people that are around you,
Yeah.
or even to call the members once you get once you know and you want to share with them. It's like there's this button that clicks where you're like, well, you already know they're not gonna, like, you try, but it's so difficult, to connect that way. But understanding that, I hope that members that watch can be like, you're right, like that's not normal, like when they see all these situations that people go through, because you shouldn't have to go through that to leave an organization. Can you imagine leaving your job? Like, and
It is
like
so
something
intense. You're having
like
an
this happens.
excess crisis. How do you say that word? Existential crisis.
Oh, maybe that's how you say it. I'm
I
not
don't know how
sure.
you say it, but that's literally how you feel. Your whole world's falling apart. And you're so scared. And like you said, your only community, because you've literally tossed everyone else out, your whole community is there. Now all of a sudden you're not going there on Saturday and you're like, I don't know what to do with myself. I miss them. I
Mm-hmm.
also don't want to go there because of everything I'm reading.
Right.
I'm sad. I'm freaking out. I'm grieving my faith. Everything I've
Mm-hmm.
believed in wholeheartedly for the last 10 years has just come crumbling down. And I think that's a big thing because a lot of people in the church say, yeah, that means you didn't have true faith from the get. When actually the only reason why I went, no matter what was going on in my life, whether I wanted to or not, was because of father and mother. Not because of
Mm-hmm.
the sand, like they say, right? Not because of a brother or a sister. Ultimately, the reason why I showed up when I always showed up was because of father and mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, the only reason I would show up is to give the members a hug, not because of father, mother. But
Mm-hmm.
before, when, we were in, that was the reason we went, was because of our
Mm-hmm.
faith. Whether we were sick or whether one member who we may love was pissing us off and we didn't really feel like going that day, or like, we're like, I'm not having a good time with these brother and sister in this time period, but I have to go because of father and
Mhm.
mother. They were the reason we went. And now it's like
Mhm.
they're the reason we don't want to go. We miss you guys, but
Exactly.
like I can't go because of them. They're not real.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
facts. So how was that, Marissa? Like when you ultimately did leave, like for good, how was your experience after that? Did they come looking for you? Yeah?
Yes, like okay, so I was gonna like also mention like so the doctrinal stuff wasn't working because of the countermeasures, but then when I started looking at that stuff started making me feel like, okay, what's going on? When I started, what really did it for me was Corey's testimony. And I started feeling like, why should we have to go to this place? Right? And like be treated this way. Maybe like and I can't say like I was treated like that specifically, but in other ways, we all experience things we shouldn't have experienced for what isn't true God. But like, being a mom, I don't want my kids to grow up and have to experience these things. For what?
Hmm.
For two false
Hmm.
gods? Like, you know? So I think what got me to leave was more of the testimony at first. When, other people might be like, oh, well, then, that's sinners. Like, Pastor so and so is just a sinner. It's not like sister, that's not like doctrine. When it's like, oh no, but there's other things that like came after. But like uh I think when I first left, I did go down the rabbit hole because we're kept from it for so long. Then you're like, what
Hmm.
else? What else?
Hmm.
Right? And you're so scared that you're making the wrong choice at first, you can't talk to them. You don't want to pull
Hmm.
them away. You're like, hey, I don't want to let you know what I'm doing because, like, if it is the truth, then I'll just be the one to be punished. And then you guys are okay. And I don't want to, like, stir up a whole thing.
Hmm.
And then you get to the point where, like, you've seen enough where you're like, okay, like I think Jordan with Great Lakes Studios had mentioned a saying, like, if this guy's thirsty and he's drinking gasoline, and you're like, you need to drink water. And he's like, well, I don't know where the source, show me the source of water. And it's like, well, don't worry about the water right now. Just stop drinking the gasoline. When you come to
Hmm.
find out, like, really the history of this place and like all the lies and deception, you're like, yeah, I may not know what I'm doing or what I believe fully, and I'm healing, and like, there's so many things I'm going through after leaving. Like, I don't want to go back. Like, I know I made the right choice.
Hmm.
But I think life after this for all of us is amazing, but it is different also when like for me, I have a handful of I love all of the members. Like I love all of them that are still there. I miss all of them. But there's also like a select handful that like we're like close. Like we like raised our kids together like even inside and outside of the church and like told each other everything about our life. Like we're like this on like also like a personal level, like even outside. So like where I I'm learning at like what does that look like, you know? Like them still being there and like me like being patient with that because like we were once there and then like them also like loving me anyway, but then like them still like she like fell away. It's like too you know, it's hard to but we love each other. So I think like leaving has been the best choice. But it's just like it's it's so di the experience like it's hard to explain that like only like if you were where we were if you were in the same boat you would understand. It's hard to
Hmm.
explain.
That's good. That's good. Amy, you got any final thoughts?
I think Marissa, I'm really just really, really, really proud of you, you know? And I think for a lot of members who have been in, especially like not to mention like Daniel Park too much, but I definitely think that when people of the Midwest leave, um, what he's taught is it's an extra layer. There's other things that you kind of have to fight. It's not just the original cult, but now you have these other things that you're like thinking are gonna happen. So um I don't know if I don't know exactly what else to say besides I'm excited for your future. I'm excited for like in the next year, what is like how we're going to be able to like update throughout time. And um I
Yeah.
think just within like the last, I don't know if it has it been a full year since you left, not fully.
No, it's
Mm.
just been
Mm.
a little over 6 months because it was December
Oh my gosh.
2025, which I reached out to you because I remembered you and I was like, Amy.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Wow. So right away. Okay. Yeah, so you, yeah. Yes.
I'm
It's
still
good.
figuring it out. Like I still feel confident in my
Yeah.
decision and I've come a long way from when I first left. Um, but yeah, it's still not been like a ton of time. So like you
Yeah.
said, in a year from now, it'll be cool to.
Yeah, that'd be really cool because I thought you were out a little bit longer actually because I've been out a year now, I think. So um I really think like stepping up and speaking out, um it, it's been so powerful for you. I can see that it's difficult when you know people that are
It
in the
is.
organization, because you don't want them to misunderstand, especially when they're important to you. But I can see that you speak out because you do care about them. Like, you're hoping one day they're gonna watch it and they're gonna be like, oh, she cared about me enough to put herself on a platform where a whole organization that's worldwide is going to talk about her. Like, I really think that the members need to see like that part of your sacrifice, like part of what you're doing, and not see it as, oh, she's the devil, but really see it as like what members literally are standing up, especially like Edgar and everyone else, that's spoken up on behalf of this organization, because it's not like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons where so many people know about them. But I feel like this organization really strives off secrecy, and they like the fact that nobody knows about them. And so I do feel like those of us who speak up, there is a little bit extra layer of like not, I wouldn't say fear, but like you're willing to carry this burden in order for these members that you really care about to see some sort of light, some kind of truth. It's worth it to you. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important that the members see that, because I see it. I see it in you and I see it in all the other ex-members. Like nobody's like, "Hey, yeah, make a video of me. Let me tell this dramatic, traumatic story. Let's talk trauma for no reason."
Right.
Just because like there's gotta be a purpose to it. There's a purpose to everything you said, and I really hope that the ones that are close to you, you know, I don't want to put pressure, but just see your heart at least,
Yeah.
and what you do. Yeah, that's it.
That
That's all I
was
had to say.
that was beautiful, Amy, and I couldn't agree with you more. This is very vulnerable to do this kind of things. It's not easy. And Marissa, I had no idea you had only been out 6 months. So that's difficult. But again, it speaks to your character, and it speaks to, again, this stuff is not easy to share, or you don't get anything out of this, you know what I mean? Like so the fact that you're willing to do it, like Amy said, that's because you care about the people that are still in there. And I honestly
Mhm.
think that everybody that is willing to tell their story, I think that, what I mean, is for the same reason, because they want to help. They want to help. And for those who have been kind of watching the channel even before this channel started, I would be on Great Light Studios a whole lot. And if you know me, I focus a lot on the doctrine, especially early on when I first left the church, and I still do, but I do it behind the scenes on the channel with the people that reach out. But on Great Light Studios, it was doctrine, doctrine, doctrine. And I came to realize something after a few years, that like people were reacting more to like people's testimonies than the doctrine. Doesn't mean to me that doctrine is not important, because again, this is where I love talking about the doctrine, but what I realized is that it's very hard to talk to someone about the doctrine when they're completely closed off their mind, their ears, and everything. And so when you try to talk to them about the doctrine, even when Marissa was saying like the countermeasures and everything that they put there is to protect you or make you feel that as soon as someone begins to open his mouth and they don't agree with WMSCOG, you have to just shut it off and just be ready to respond with the countermeasure. You're not even thinking about what they're saying. You're not trying to understand them. You're just ready to respond because you've shut everything down. That's what they've taught you. But sometimes through the interviews, when people are just sharing their humanity, and when you see that like I feel like members put their guard down a little bit, like because then they're not feeling attacked through the doctrine. They're just sitting down listening to a human being. And when
Yeah,
you when you hear that, it's very impactful. And
Mhm.
and so that's why, you know what I mean, like, oh, it's very vulnerable. It's not easy to do this, but again, I commend every single person that's done this. I commend Jordan also for, his work, because, whew, that was,
a lot.
everyone that's had anything to do with this movement, I'm very grateful. And it's not easy, but we're gonna keep pushing. We're gonna keep pushing because God willing, people got to get out of that place and get their life back and enjoy time with their families and enjoy life, and Marissa, I definitely want to hear more from you, like in the future, because I feel like you're already doing great. I can't imagine, like Amy said, I can't imagine like a year from now, 2 years from now, like it trust me, ask Amy, it only gets better with time. You know what I mean? So thank you, ladies, for joining the show today. Marissa, thank you for sharing your story. And I will ask you just one last question in closing. Any advice for current members that could be watching this right now?
Um, just the advice I have is to take the time to reevaluate everything. Like my biggest piece of advice is just do some digging, do your own research, like make, like if this is really true God, if Ansang Hong and God the Mother are true God, even like the history of the church or what people have to say, those things shouldn't matter. Because at the end of the day, like them being true God will always stand if they are. And like you doing your own research should never be considered sin. Why? Why looking at shouldn't you be experts on your own God? Like, of like how the church was split, all the nitty gritty. Like,
Mhm.
you have every right to research everything about the God you believe. We should be, right? It shouldn't be some secret or tiptoeing around anything. And, if you start to feel like what you see and what you find is off and wrong, then go with your gut and trust that instinct. And also, like, if you come to find that it's just not for you anymore, you always have the option to go back. If they're all loving God, like, wouldn't they allow you to repent and go back if that's what you wanted? Like, you shouldn't be feeling like you're in a prison where you can't look at stuff and that you're such a sinner for looking at stuff. Look at stuff. And if you feel like what you found, you don't want to go back. You don't want to raise your kids there. You don't want to subject your children growing in this kind of atmosphere and environment. Then just be patient with yourself, because I feel like all of us feel like, where do I go? What is the truth then? Like, where are the answers? Because, you know, WMSCOG has answers for everything, and that's not life. Like, you need to like be able to sit with the fact that we're humble beings. We don't have answers to so many things like in the universe. Like, don't be afraid of not having all the answers, because all the comments, everything I ever see is like everyone freaking out about not knowing where to go or where all the answers are. But don't worry about that. Just heal. Because even if you don't have all the answers, are you going to stay somewhere that's not actually the truth and that is damaging and has taken your life away? And that's just questions you should ask yourself. You need to listen to your gut and like listen to your intuition and just ask yourself those questions. Do I want to give another 10 years to this place? Your answer could be yes, but if it's no, and finding out what you found out, then you need to be your own advocate. And if you feel that way, like there's a ton of people to reach out to. There's a big community of us who have left and have leaned on each other, because there's a lot of people who have been in cults, different kinds of cults in the world. But it's another thing to all share the same experience with this same exact cult, and us really be able to like talk and like, help each other through it. So there is a community that can help you through the way too.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that being said, I think this was another banger. We can go ahead and we can go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you guys again for doing this. I really appreciate it, and for all the listeners there. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get this content out to more people that might need it. And until next time, thanks for watching another episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG.